evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever part of the world you are in. Welcome to this webinar. We've got a fabulous group of people here presenting this with me, and you can look at. Hopefully, everybody can see the screen, and we're going to get started right away. We want to make sure we've got plenty of time for questions. And just a couple of notes we get started. My name is Ganesh Kohli. I'm very fortunate that I have been associated with the IC3 movement from its inception, and I serve as the chair of the IC3 conference at this time. But also have two fabulous colleagues from the university side, in Ankur Vohra, who is at Jindal University, and Dakota Horn at the University of Oklahoma, that are joining me. So I'm going to begin, and then we'll have Ankur present a couple of slides, and then Dakota share his perspective. And then I'll come back and summarize. We want to leave lots of time for questions, so keep them flowing in the chat box. We'll try and get through as many questions as possible. Also, so that you know, this webinar will be recorded and you will have access to it. If any one of you want to have some of the data or the presentation, we want to make sure that we'll get that over to you. So feel free to reach out to us for that. A couple of other pieces as we get started. We've used economic parameters to highlight regions because these are easier to understand, so you will see that as we go through. We also focused on India because it's a large enough country, and as far as the IC3 Regional Forums are concerned, most of the tier 2, tier 3 cities and the untapped areas are in India. The regional forums outside of India are all in major cities, whether that's in Hanoi or in Dubai or in Dhaka or in Auckland, New Zealand. So we've just tried to focus on the untapped areas, or the areas that are not frequented by university colleagues, just as a background. So I'm going to run through slides here real quickly, so don't worry if you lose out on some piece of information. But this is the last budget, and then subsequent actions with government. There's a lot of focus on developing smaller cities and getting them to enjoy the benefits of being mainstream. I mean, a lot of the growth is expected to be in smaller cities. And what we've done is we've used an Ernst & Young report for this presentation, and we'll show you some data from there, but we'll also run through some very specific examples of cities here. Education spending is up. We are in a region where education is as important as food and shelter. We're talking about a country that absolutely considers education at the very top of the need, and parents will often do everything possible to get the best education for young members in their family. So what the Ernst & Young report really did was they talked about the traditional metros. They talked about some fresh metro, and then they talked about a set of other new wave cities. So you have the traditional metros and the new wave cities. What we've had is they've kind of classified 8 traditional metros, which are Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai, and Pune. And then there are these 42 new wave cities, 2 of which would be fresh metros pretty soon. I think they're just kind of they've just gotten added. And then you've got the next set of high potential cities and additional emerging areas. You'll find that we are actually going to 18 of these 20. So we've marked them out and reaching out to these regions. But even the other two, we are going to Baramati, which is about 2 hours from Pune. So we could say potentially we are going very close to one of the 8 metros that are missing, and we're not going to Delhi because it's a large city where we were already just a few months back. But we are also going to be in Tezpur in Assam, which is actually it's about 4 hours from Guwahati. So we're in which is one of the 30 additional metros. So that's the landscape. These new wave cities will overtake the metros by 2020 in terms of their total population. Will show faster GDP growth. So if you went to Mumbai or to Delhi or to some of the metros in 2010, going to the new wave cities in 2020 would be the same as going to the metros in 2010. So in absolute necessity to come out and support these students and these schools in the new wave cities, because they're right where the metros were just a few years back, and so they're really the new metros as we'd like. I wanted to give some very specific examples here on some of the places we are going to, and possibly our audience on this call may not have heard of some of these places, but Aurangabad was in the news in 2010. This is one of the cities where we have a regional forum. Was in the news in 2010 for having placed the single largest order for Mercedes-Benz cars in a single transaction in India. 150 Mercedes-Benz cars were ordered, 101 BMWs in one day in the same year. And because they actually went out to Germany and said, okay, we'll get all of these people want to buy cars, come to this particular place. So again, it's a manufacturing hub, and there's lots of prominent IT, but rarely does anybody go to Aurangabad. Baramati, is the sugar and wine producing belt of Maharashtra. Extremely, popular for that. But also, you have Piaggio has plants there. You have high-tech textile. There's a very prominent education sector, but nobody will go to Baramati. If I said come to Pune, that's fine, but drive 2 hours out of Pune, that's probably a challenge. Again, numerous such examples where you've got hundreds of thousands of young Indian students who are looking at advice and guidance, but they have little or no access to information. Bhopal, we actually have a regional forum tomorrow in Bhopal, and I was just looking up my numbers that's being shared by my colleague here. We're 121 total registrations for the Bhopal Regional Forum tomorrow, with 105 high school delegates. This is the heart of India. 5,000 high schools in the state of Madhya Pradesh. It's one of the top 10 high potential Indian cities per ENY. And you've got every reason to go to Bhopal, but we've got 105 school delegates and about 16 university delegates. Potentially, we could have lots more universities look at Bhopal if they really understood the importance and the prominence. So and there are then other examples, and we can share these slides with you if you'd like. If you need to take this back to your colleagues and show them why we should go to a Lucknow, why we should go to a Nagpur. So there's an Oxford economics report, that shows that all of the top 10 fastest growing cities in the world are, I believe, in India. And these are other examples. Nagpur is a proposed smart city. You're talking about, GDP growth of 8.4%. Raipur is again another major area, 40%. This is the capital of one of the newer states in India, which is Chhattisgarh, and they have pretty much all these major institutions, and 40% of the schools in Raipur were established after 2001. Such a big factor. Again, a lot of these schools haven't got visits and participation and involvement, do not have structured career and college counseling setups. Some more examples, and I can keep going on and on, but you can read some of these slides as we go along. These are really, really important cities. Ranchi is the capital of the state of Jharkhand. Excuse me. And again, one of the highest employment generating tier 3 city. These are all cities where we are doing regional forums, IC3 regional forums. Excuse me about that. And so, you've got, again, this little graphic. I'll just quickly show this to you. But a younger population and the largest number of schools that are established post 2001. So these are a lot of these schools are doing some great work, and they were established post 2001. Now there is a distinction in the way that we engage with these regions. I know that a lot of universities have student recruitment as their focus with travel, but you could really engage with these regions and have recruitment as a very sweet byproduct. The level of information available in some of these regions are lower, much lower as compared to the level of information available, let's say, in a major city. So the student has to travel, the information gap is wider here, and therein lies our role, whether as school delegates or university delegates, to actually bridge this gap. By traveling to these areas, we're actually going to be able to close this information gap and allow for these students who have all the resources, the intelligence, the ability, the talent to manifest any dream that they would want to. But this lack of information and lack of support from institutions that have often kind of chosen to go the beaten path, I think has stopped them from going to some of these non-traditional locations so far. So students are better prepared with information in the metros, which they aren't as much in tier 2, tier 3. And we'll take some questions. But with that, I want to pass, hand over to my colleague from OP Jindal University, Ankur, over.
Thank you for bringing me into the conversation. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to delegates and colleagues from around the world who will be logged in now. Yeah, so I'm really happy to be a part of this conversation. I believe you are doing a fantastic job with taking the movement forward. My experience at IC3 Regional Forums have been great, both with Ashoka, when I was with Ashoka, and now for the last 8 months with Jindal. And particularly before I move into, my slides, I found one interesting slide that I want to talk about, where you talked about 2 fresh metros and 10 next high potential cities. And I just took a picture of that. And you mentioned Bhopal, Chandigarh, Indore, Lucknow, Kanpur, Vizag. I think even the other ones, these are our high potential cities for Jindal and even for Ashoka. And right now, my colleague will be there in Bhopal tomorrow for the regional that you are having there. So I believe we have so much potential, and particularly from a university who is based out of India. These all cities have helped us in having a definitely an increase in set of applications that we have for our different programs, and each city has its own flavor of which courses and which programs the students love to go to. So probably Bhopal will have more students who are interested in law. That is what we have found out. That is just from our applications, but that is where we do our own analysis and find out that these these cities have their own nuances. Even for Ashoka, we used to travel to all these cities, and there the idea was to have in diversity. A Delhi kid or a Bombay kid brings in a lot of fresh perspective to the school, but we want more. India is more than Delhi, Bombay, or a Bangalore. And when we went 2 years back, started going with to these places on our own, and then through you, is we have found out what you have said is absolutely correct. That we have found so much potential in teachers, the schools. They are hungry for information. Parents are hungry for information. Students are a little less aware than a Delhi or a Bombay or a Bangalore major metro kid, but they have the same energy. They have brilliant students. I will say paying capacity is not an issue. You talked about Aurangabad, the Mercedes thing. So I think there are many more Aurangabads in Tier 2, Tier 3 cities in India, Baramati, for example. So definitely, I am all gung-ho in my outreach, in our outreach at Jindal right now, and we are going all out for Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities and the regional forums, and particularly why IC3 and why we have, I have continued being a part of this movement is because I think this is the best platform to network with a particular city, it's a particular region that you may not be. Personally, I remember going to Colombo, which is a major city, but in Ashoka, we didn't try Colombo. It was only after IC3 Regional came in, and that's a major city, we tried Colombo and we saw the huge potential there. And after Colombo, I went to Kandy because of the connections that I made at Colombo. So I think this is nothing can be better than this in this part of the world, IC3. It also, as I said, it helps us in understanding the decision driving forces and insights for students and parents in a specific region. Like I talked about Bhopal. Bhopal, we got a lot of interest, I don't know why, for law programs. So it helped us in understanding that. As I said, I think the third point is relevant, and I've already talked about it. It helps us in exploring those cities which are not part of our traditional travel calendar, and we go to those cities and then they become a part of our calendar. And we think that why didn't we think about this city? It was just that we didn't find the right timing and the right platform to approach those cities. So I think IC3 regionals, go for it. If somebody is looking, if you have that urge that probably I know, data says that I should be in that city, but I don't know how to go to that city, I think nothing better than the regional. Coming to for the counselors, I think again, it's a win-win situation for the counselors and the university representatives. I've met so many counselors who I introduced to a lot of opportunities. I had the pleasure of introducing them to counseling. They were trying themselves, but when they met some of us who were using this approach, counseling-based approach to admissions, their eyes opened up and they said, we thought we are the only ones in this part of the world. We had no network. So for giving the counselors a network, I think IC3 has done an awesome job in this part of the world. Again, admission queries from counselors most of the time, again with the counseling-based approach to admissions, and again, and Jindal model of admissions where there is no cutoff-based admissions. We look at an overall profile for a candidate. So this was new for counselors in India, particularly, and they were said, "Why don't you guys have a cutoff?" I said, we don't have a cutoff because we have an overall profile. So what is an overall profile? How do you judge the candidates? What are the weightages? So this again came up in my conversations with these guys, and they opened up and they thought, yeah, there is not only other universities are outside of India do that, but even Indian universities now based in India are starting to look at an overall profile for a candidate. And definitely, advocacy platform for early access kids. Again, I just left Ashoka. I've seen the beautiful work that we could do for kids from many Tier 2, Tier 2, 3 cities. I'm not saying there are only early access kids there, but some of those kids who may not have got that opportunity which a kid in a Delhi or a Bombay school would have got that opportunity or got that connection made with the university because we were there through this forum. So I think absolutely IC3 regionals are part of our year-round engagement strategy, and it will remain for many years to come. Thank you.
Over to our colleague in Oklahoma. Dakota, you want to share a perspective as an international university representative?
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to try and turn my camera on now. I just don't want to overload the system here. Hold on. I was trying to earlier. Hi. Good morning, everyone. From Norman, Oklahoma. My name is Dakota Horn. Thank you so much, both of you, for having me. Thanks for leading up to this. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it's been like from my perspective, working for an international university and participating in a number of these IC3 regionals. I've had the opportunity to attend regionals in everywhere from Lucknow to Jakarta, and it's really been an enriching experience for me, both personally and professionally. So a lot of the points that I'm going to make will kind of bridge off of what Ankur was speaking of earlier in his first slide. But I think that most importantly, this is going to provide a realm of access that most of us wouldn't necessarily have coming from an international university. I know OP Jindal is a relatively younger university in India, but most Indian admissions counselors are already going to have an idea of some of these cities. We looked at the list of cities that Ganesh has brought up before, and I have to be honest, I mean, only a handful of them have ever come across my screen or my desk. But increasingly, I'm seeing these applications from students in cities like Surat and Rajkot and Bhopal, and I'm going, wait, why have we never been there? But the students are finding us. And I think that the IC3 regionals are offering a great opportunity for us to go and actively engage these regions and these students and these populations. And in many cases, this is an opportunity to be one of the first visitors from an international university to the city or a region as a whole. And you can't really quantify the weight that this could hold with counselors and school administrators. And these are going to be school administrators and counselors that might spend their entire careers in this city or at this high school. And those sorts of relationships are going to be ones that pay dividends for years to come, right? I think for those of us on the international side that are concerned about our budgets, financially, this is an excellent opportunity to hit an entire region and engage with multiple high schools in just 1 or 2 days, right? Something that would otherwise take a much longer time and effectively cost a lot more money. And not only are we able to engage with multiple representatives in just 1 or 2 days, this offers you the opportunity to present, to really put your face out there. And while it's not a sales call, you really have the opportunity to engage with people from a wide area in the region. When we were in Lucknow, we had people from Varanasi there as well, from many other smaller cities from around UP, and that was really great. So it's also a great opportunity to collaborate with local leaders to facilitate more engagement in the future. Like I just said, you're going to have the opportunity to learn about problems and issues that are faced by that specific population of student or counselor, and you can work together with those school administrators to demystify the university admissions process in the United States, or to solve any issues that they face on their side with the application, with educating the students how to talk to parents about these processes and certain things like that as well. So those problems or pain points within counseling programs that are experienced within admission cycles can really be addressed by the person who is reading the applications inside the university offices. And I've seen in conversation with some of these counselors sort of the stress melt away as you explain to them, hey, this is what the holistic admissions process looks like. It doesn't have to be confusing. I can tell you exactly what we're looking for. And that can be really, really enriching as from our perspective. And that's these face-to-face interactions really provide a platform to collaborate and better serve the students. And that's exactly what it is. It's really student-focused, counseling-focused approach. I mentioned before, these workshops aren't salesy. The IC3 Regional isn't a sales call. They're really built on equipping counselors and admissions representatives with the skills and relationships to ultimately do our jobs better. And we've experienced great success with that in terms of building relationships and going back to cities that I hadn't necessarily been to until I attended one of the IC3 regionals. And finally, we have the opportunity to both teach and learn from school officials and counselors in this region. And the value in that really can't be quantified. It's mutually beneficial for all participants on both sides of the desk to be able to engage and provide some information that they wouldn't otherwise be able to receive, and then to really learn a population so that if you are an admissions counselor or effectively a recruiter, you can better do your job working with those students and families from that region. That about does it for me.
I want to make sure I think that is fabulous. Thank you to both of you. I wanted to summarize before we begin the Q&A. I just want to summarize a couple of things here. We live in a world where repetition is a norm in general when it comes to where we go. And if you ask some of the schools in the metros, they will tell you that they get like hundreds of visit requests and so many universities coming through. Many of these occasions, the students aren't interested because they're overwhelmed with the number of times universities have visited them. And here you've got an equally capable student, a motivated family, they have all the resources, and he's virtually got nothing in terms of information. And the IC3 mission is really not about working directly with students. We're working with schools, but as schools become more sensitive about all of the options that are available, so many times the schools just have no clue. We're talking about a region where we have 150,000 plus schools that have no career and college counseling, that have no concept of helping young people transition from high school to university. All the focus is on teaching math and English and, trying to get them to be competitive, etc. But a lot of decisions are being made out of ignorance. A lot of young people are leaving schools like airplanes without a navigation system. And this is a service project as well for a lot of us. I mean, we're all here because we don't want airplanes without navigation. We don't want a world full of despondent young people and grumpy 35-year-olds. We need to make sure that early enough in life, there is some sense of direction. It's not always about, they could be undecided about their major, but getting a sense of what their interests are, self-exploring. And the whole IC3 mission is about empowering schools so that they can empower students to make good decisions. And as of today, I believe at the start of this webinar, my screen showed some numbers. I don't know if some people had a chance to glance at that because I was trying to pull some numbers out. We have 1,017 registrations for the IC3 Regional Forums. At the same time last year, we had 163, I believe. I just shared a number, which was 26 a while back. Is 1,015. We are going to see at this rate about 3,000 people at IC3 Regional Forums in this spring. And you are talking about between 50 and 100 school delegates at most IC3 regional forums. To get together with 40 or 50 schools in one day is just and in an intimate setting with a handful of universities. You know, in Bhopal tomorrow, we have, you know, like 15 or 16 university organization delegates with 105 school delegates. It's just such a lottery and such a jackpot for those universities that are going to be there. Literally, if you think of it from that perspective, they get to get their story out to those very intent school counselors. I mean, so I would say, you know, look at, even as you decide what you want to do, look at Baramati, look at Aurangabad, look at Trichy, look at a lot of these regionals are very small. The percentage of universities at these regionals is very small as compared to the percentage of school delegates. So it really is, it's a very favorable environment. But with that, I wanted to open the floor for questions and see if there are any questions coming through the chat box. I can see there is one. I guess my question is, with so many budget and time constraints on international institutions, how do we identify which forum is going to be the most beneficial to us? Also, you mentioned a lack of information for families. Do they have internet? Yes, they do have internet. Sometimes a little slow and tardy, but most times they have reasonable internet. Will you also be looking at how we might engage remotely and digitally? So the IC3 Institute, and I'll let maybe Dakota take the first part of this question as an international university rep, but I'll do the last part. IC3's focus is to empower schools. So if you have the time to volunteer and teach a class at the IC3 Institute, which is online, you can do that. These are cohorts of counselors or teachers being trained to become counselors. But for the most part, you know, that's only for those that you cannot really talk about your university there, but you get recognized for having contributed to the preparation of universities. It's invaluable to be there and have connections or relationships with school counselors. But my take, and as Dakota answers this, is we can help you identify what regional would be best for you. You know, depending on what university, you know, what programs you have and what university you are and where you are in your evolution. Do you have an alumni base? You don't have one. If you're completely fresh, we can help you find the best fit high schools for you. And there are certain types of high schools that are the best fit for you. And based on that, also find the best fit cities for you. But Dakota, your perspective?
Thank you. I muted myself. I didn't want y'all to hear me breathing or hear the wind blowing. I think universities that are wondering which regional or which regionals will I be attending need to ask themselves a couple of different questions. And the first of which is going to be, where are my applicants coming from? And if you're looking at which states predominantly your Indian applicants are coming from, that's going to give you a good idea of, hey, maybe we should visit one of the regionals in Ahmedabad or Assam, and where are our numbers growing? If you're not getting gigantic numbers from any of these tier 2 or tier 3 cities already, I think you want to ask yourself, am I traveling to India, and will I be close enough to any of these IC3 regionals where it would be worthwhile for me to branch off at the end or the beginning of my trip and attend one and see how this works out for us? I think that that's really going to be what it is you jump in feet first and you see what kind of value that it can bring to you, and you work from there. also, Ganesh, you were right to consider the region. I mean, I think that if you're a school that has excellent business programs, you want to go to a place like Gujarat, right? If you have excellent engineering programs, you want to go to South India, and you really want to explore these areas where all of these great computer science and engineering students are coming from. And that's something that only you can learn about as you start to analyze, first of all, your applicant pool, but also speak to the people that are working with Unisys and IC3 for their expertise on the entire country, and how you can kind of, you know, not necessarily stereotype, but characterize certain regions with certain interests. We did talk a little bit about some of the regionals that they are visiting here this year, and Ganesh mentioned the industries that drive those regions. You're going to find that a lot of those students are impacted by that same economic growth or reliance on a certain economic industry. And you're going to find students that want to study things that are going to allow them to push that forward as well.
Wonderful. Let's see if there are other questions, and you know, if there's a note that Ankur, feel free to plug in at any point. I can see there's another question coming through from Anuradha. Could you quickly take us through the format of the regional forum as well? I mean, what can we expect on the day? Wonderful. So, sorry, go ahead. Do you want to answer that?
No, before that, I just wanted to, you know, jump in. Dakota answered it beautifully, that we should look at numbers, application numbers, that gives you an idea of, you know, the regions that we are getting as it is organic applications from, and definitely those regions are go for us. And second thing, you know, the question was, how do we analyze? I think one of the things that he's rightly mentioned was we should network with people on the ground. So KIC, Unisys, and people who have been working with them, some of your colleagues in the network, or who are based out of here in India, you should try and reach out to them and find out if somebody has traveled to that region, that city, any connection with the school. I think I absolutely agree with whatever Dakota said, and I just wanted to re-emphasize that is the strategy that we have also used here in India of analyzing of the application inquiries, reaching out to people on the ground. That is what works. So I think that was what I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Right. I think, I'm sorry to digress a little bit. I wanted to address your other question about lack of information. I think to clarify with what we mean by that is that, first of all, we as admissions counselors understand that students don't read everything that we send them anymore. They've got a very, very short attention span. And there's so many misconceptions that are held by counselors, families, and students that a lot of our job is just going and demystifying and saying, hey, that's not it. This is it. Whether we put all the information on the internet or not, people are going to hold these ideas or misconceptions true to themselves. I mean, I work for a US institution. If you go to a lot of cities in India and around the world, you have to ask people, hey, do you think that you have to take an SAT or an ACT to come to the United States? 75% of the students will raise their hand and say, yes, you have to. And that's just not the fact. That's not true. Right? I know that some of you work for universities outside of the United States, in the UK or Canada, and I'm sure that there's plenty of things that you deal with on a day-to-day basis where you get the opportunity to re-educate somebody about your processes. And that's really what we meant by lack of information.
Super. Sorry. Thank you, Ankur and Dakota. I just wanted to, Anuradha, your question on the format. If you get on the schedule page of IC3's regionalforums.com, you'll see the schedule listed. But typically, we have 2 short keynotes. We have 4 breakout sessions. And we could have parallel sessions during those 4 breakout session slots. We have some planned networking and time, and we have a lunch networking hour, and then we also have in some cases, in fact in most cases, we also have a student fair for universities. So wherever the host school is able to call their students over, and it's a meaningful group of universities, you'll also find that there's a student fair. So you just kind of go out of the IC3 Regional Forum for an hour during one of the breakout sessions, and you kind of meet with students. So all of these, you breakout sessions, some keynotes, planned networking, and possibly a student fair for that particular school. I hope that answers your question, Anuradha. And you'll get details on the link that Shrikant has shared, so that'd be helpful. All right, looks like we're 4 minutes to the end of this webinar, and let's see if we have another question coming through. Any one of us who's in the audience, who's attended, or who has an idea, a suggestion for the others, feel free if you'd like to contribute in any way. If there aren't many questions, we'd be happy to hear your perspective. Great. So I'm going to take a minute to close this. And, you know, really, IC3 is not about a set of people doing something. We have 160 plus volunteers here in this movement. We expect, we are a grassroots movement. We really are, you know, moving things on the ground. We're not glamorous events. We are, you know, we do a good job organizing an annual conference and the regional forums, but really our goal is that every kid gets direction and counseling, that we get career and college counseling to every school in this region. We're a 15-year project. We need all hands on deck. I invite every single person on this call. If you'd like to come and volunteer your time and contribute and do something, it could be a little thing like getting active on social media, getting awareness about certain pieces, etc. We need all the help to do that. And you can be a part of the movement by coming to the regionals, by coming to the conference, by teaching at the institute, by getting the word out. Know that our programs cost nothing. The regional forums cost zinch for school delegates. They don't pay a single penny to attend the regional forums. The 1-year IC3 Institute certificate, which includes 4 weeks of residential teaching and year-long online teaching, costs zinch. So we're taking in 500 counselors or teachers into the program for the class of 2020 that will begin in September 2019. Our pilot group has only 26. They will all graduate. You will be, if you're coming to the annual IC3 conference in Mumbai, you will be part of the graduation. You'll see that in the evening on the first day. So, you know, we're really here to serve a larger purpose. There are scholarships available. There's all kinds of resources that are available. And I would invite every one of us, because this is really, we call it a movement because it's all of us coming together. Ankur, Dakota, they're just volunteering their time to help out. And I think all of the other committee members, many of who are on this call, you know, who may be listening in as well. So I urge you and welcome you to be part of this movement. And I also want to thank everyone for joining us today for this webinar. This will be available online, and you will also, I know some of you requested the slides. We'll get the slides over to you, and we look forward to staying in touch. Thank you, Ankur. Thank you, Dakota, for your time as well.
Thanks, everyone.